Imagine a life where every day is fueled by energy, vitality, and purpose. Where age is just a number and your best years are always ahead. Hi, I'm Andy Nam, certified functional nutrition longevity coach, best-selling author, and international speaker. After reversing my own chronic health struggles, I'm now on a mission to help you live longer, stronger, and of course to look younger. I combine biohacking, cutting-edge nutrition, and stem cell technology to unlock your body's full potential. So no matter where your starting point is, I'm going to guide you toward a chronically healthy life. Ready to reverse aging and take control of your future? Connect with me today. Your journey to longevity starts here. Welcome everyone. It's Andy. I'm from Chronically Healthy Life. And today is another episode of Fountain of Youth with Andy. And every week it's interesting. I was telling Amanda, I usually have Amanda joining me, my partner in crime, for my Fountain of Youth Wednesdays. And today, I told her, I think since I'm going to a light convention tomorrow, I wanted to share a little bit about my journey from a previous life of fast cars and fast life to now, helping people live longer, more vibrant, and just showing possibilities, right? And today's topic is how do you measure longevity, right? As a longevity expert, I'm always getting asked questions. Well, what does longevity really mean, right? And as an audience, everyone that's watching right now, let me ask you this. What does longevity mean to you? Because I think longevity means something different to everyone out there. And it's funny because, Minna and I were just having a conversation over the weekend. And, we always have these powwows on the weekend of, our wins or losses, and our vision and goals moving forward in life, right? We're not always planning, waiting for what's going to happen tomorrow, like my episodes week to week. But we really do plan ahead as to how we envision our life's going to be. What are we going to be able to do? And a lot of the things that people concentrate on is how much money they're going to have, right? That's a thing that they think about. For longevity to happen, I need a lot of money. But is that really true? Let me ask you this. How important is longevity to you if you are a millionaire or a billionaire? Does that mean that you can enjoy life? Right. And I think that's a loaded question because a lot of people says, yeah, money helps you enjoy life. Right. And to a certain aspect, I think that's true. And when it comes to financial freedom, that's not my specialty. That's a topic for another day. We're talking about longevity here, right? But in my mind, longevity is not just living a long time, because most people say, I just want to live a very long time. Well, there are a lot of people living a very long time, right? There are a lot of people living 80s, 90s, 100, right? But, the question you should be asking more is, rather than saying you want to live a long time, is how long are you going to be able to enjoy the life you're living? To me, that is what longevity is all about, right? Living a long time doesn't mean nothing if you are bedridden, if you need to be pushed around in a wheelchair, if you are dictated what you can do, what you can't do, or more importantly, what you choose to do, you can't do, right? Those are, to me, not longevity. That's just living a long time. And living a long time can really suck if you don't have your health to go along with it, no matter how much money you have, right? We all have our mentors in life. And Steve Jobs was one of my early mentors. Even though I wasn't personally mentored by Steve Jobs, I love his mindset. I love his philosophy. But he is a perfect example of someone that was insanely successful. He is one of the smartest people in the world. He was probably one of the richest men in the world during his time. But once again, like I said, does money buy you longevity? it did not buy Steve Jobs longevity. At the end of the day, pancreatic cancer still took Steve Jobs' life. And looking back at all the things Steve Jobs done, it is all, your own choices, what you decide to do with your life. And I think Steve, being as educated, he did the best choices he thought was right during the time for him. Right. And, I'm sure there are arguments in there, but, Steve changed the world. Apple is so different now. I am a big Apple fan, and he changed the world forever. He's going to be remembered forever. So he left the legacy. So when it comes down to longevity, just because you have money, it can't buy your health. That's sort of what I'm getting at here. Right. But everyone is sort of jumping on this longevity aspect, right? It was really funny. I was having a conversation with one of my dear friends, and he says, Andy, you need to call your program longevity something, right? And I said, well, look, I'm already a longevity expert. No, but you need to design a program about longevity, because as soon as you hear longevity, people's just going to sign up for it, because everyone just wants longevity. And I was thinking, so I'm going on this rabbit hole, going down Google and Googling longevity. And of course, all, Facebook knows everything now, right? Even though I'm not, I already clicked, do not share my browsing history to Facebook. But for some reason, Facebook knows what the hell I was looking for. And now on my Facebook feed, I have all these longevity products, right? That claim to give you longevity. And it is interesting because today I wanted to share a little bit about my journey. 12 years ago, I was in a lot of pain, right? I was in a lot of pain for over 20 years. It was probably right around 22 years that I was in chronic pain. And the funny thing is, Mina's probably the only one that knew about it along my doctors, right? But next to that, no one knew about it because I hid it so well, because I was just popping pain medication like they were candy. It started with Tylenol, extra strength Tylenol. Now knowing what Tylenol does to your body, no shit, my health is going downhill. But, even got to the point when Tylenol number 3, which is their really, really extra strength, prescription strength Tylenol, wasn't stopping the pain. I upgraded to, some stronger oxycodone drugs and stuff like that. So let's just say it was going downhill a little bit. And, by the time I hit my 40s, I was literally feeling like I was this really old person, right? And the funny thing is, now that I know how you can reverse your age, old is a relative term. But back in the day, my mind, man, my body was like my dad's body, right? And, in my mind, I was probably in my 70s when I was in my 40s, because I couldn't sit for longer than 10 minutes at a time. I couldn't stand for more than 10 minutes at a time without being in pain. I couldn't go out and eat whatever I want, because there were so many foods that irritated my stomach. As soon as I ate, within minutes, I'll be to the bathroom. And whenever me and Minna traveled, it was always traveled along the route of saying we cannot take long travels, because we need to make sure that, I'm going to have places to sit down and rest. And more importantly, there's going to be public restrooms that are clean. Yes, I'm one of those. I refuse to go to dirty public facilities. All right. So that's one thing I shared with you all. And to be honest, in my early 40s, I married my high school sweetheart. In my early 40s, me and Minna, in the 30s and 40s, we're already doing, planning, visioning before, and like what we're doing now. And, we're looking ahead 5-10 years where we wanted to be. And financially, there were times where we did amazing. Sometimes we crashed, and then other times it was amazing. So financially, we weren't too worried. We knew that no matter what happened financially, we'll figure it out. We'll get to where we need to be. But more of a problem was my health, because each year it was getting worse and worse. And each year I was getting on more pain medication. There was just a lot more side effects that, to be honest, I didn't know there were side effects during the time, because my doctor never explained it to me. Oh, you're going to get these if you take these. Nope, never got that. And now that I know better, being a functional nutritionist, those little papers that's folded into the box of your medication Well, guess what? All the side effects is in that little piece of paper that your doctors don't go over with you. I don't know. My opinion, I think they should, but I don't think they need to because they gave you the box. Here's the prescription and everything, including all the warnings in there. And since you got it, they just assume you read it. And if you read the side effects, you're taking it on your own. There's no one to blame but yourself. And for 20 years, I was blaming my own condition on myself, not on the bad education that was being given to me, that perhaps they were being given. Once again, not bashing doctors. I love doctors to death. They saved my life when I had my car accident. Oh my God, that's like almost 40 years ago when I was 18. So they put me back together like Humpty Dumpty. So never gonna bash doctors. I think they are amazing people. But when it comes to health and nutrition, I don't think they know as much as they were trained to. And like I said, talk to your doctors. Most of them have less than 25 hours of nutritional training. But anyways, into my 40s, me and Min are looking 5 years, 10 years. And of course, we had our financial plan and so on and so forth. And I thought we were sort of on track with that. All right. But health-wise, we're saying, oh, we want to travel here, we want to do this, we want to do this. And at that point, already inside my head, I was screaming, that's not something that I was going to be able to do in the next year or two. I never said that to her. Right. This is what I'm sharing to you all right now. This is being open time with Andy today. And it got me really worried, right? Because during that time I was 40, she's 40, and we're talking about retirement plans or enjoying life plans, right? Because we're thinking as we get more financially able, we can enjoy life more, right? Because like seriously, what's the point of working hard if you can't enjoy life, right? Work hard, play hard, right? You hear that saying? Most people will work hard, get sick, and no longer have time to play or the health to play, right? So I always believe work hard, play hard, work hard, play hard. Well, we're working hard and I was playing less. And I tell you, that really sucks, especially when you can afford to play hard, right? Anyways, my health was going really downhill. I was having pains everywhere. It was getting really hard to get out of bed. I was literally rolling onto the bed, picking myself off the bed before, starting my day. And I was just accessing my doctors, my physiotherapists, my trainers. What can I do to turn this around? And they all said, well, guess what, Andy? You're doing pretty good. You're doing better than most. Right. And I said, well, are things going to get better? And he says, no, Andy, it's only going to get worse. Right. And those words still burn into my mind today because he said, we all get older, we get sick. This is normal. And because you got a car accident, guess what? You just sped up the process of getting old. So in my mind, it was just telling me I'm old before my time because getting old means you become sick and frail. Right. And I believed that lie for over 20 years. I got to tell you, man, it sucks believing a lie that's being told to you and becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But anyways, bless my heart, in 43, when it was 43, I sold the dream car that I bought from Minna. We sold our Lotus Elise. A lot of people don't understand why I sold the car. Of course, I'll say, oh, we weren't driving it that much. It was not practical, right? It didn't make sense. The truth of the matter was I could not get in and out of that damn car anymore. And it hurt but geez, it just hurt like hell just sitting in the car because the car was low, it was fast, it was bumpy, everything I love in a fast sports car, but my body couldn't handle it, right? But of course, that's not what I tell people why I sold the car, right? Of course, it's my ego saying, oh yeah, we outgrew it, that's a kid's car, and we don't need it anymore. And the fact is, that's one of the biggest regrets on that car because that car was a promise that I made to Minna when we were going out in grade 12, right? Because I promised I would get her a Lotus. So I broke that promise by selling it. And on top of that, that was a freakishly awesome car. If you guys don't know what a Lotus Elise is, Google it. Man, it's literally a go-kart on steroids like a legal go-kart on the street. And, to this day, it's probably one of the biggest regrets I did for selling that car. But at the same time, selling that car is what started my journey to where I am now. So once again, it's a blessing, it's a curse. I lost this amazing car, but I was able to turn my whole health around by selling this car, because that car really gave me the aha moment that my body is so old and breaking down that I can't even enjoy the simple things in life. Right. And the funny thing is, the person I sold the car with, he was a person that sold high grade nutritional supplementation. And if people don't know what supplementation means, it just means vitamins. Okay. High grade vitamins. Right. And the funny thing is, I've been taking vitamins since I was in my 20s. Right. Because my doctor says, well, you need to take your multivitamin, take your vitamin C, maybe your vitamin D. Right. And you should be good. So I've been taking vitamins since I was probably in my mid 20s through my 30s, through my early 40s. And of course, when I asked the doctor what's the best brand, oh, just buy the cheapest one you can get. Costco has the best deal. Just buy the big ass bottle and you get the best bang for your buck. And of course, I always listen to my doctor. Who doesn't, right? They're supposed to know the best for your health, right? At least that's what I thought. Anyways, that's what I did for 20 odd years. So when I sold the car to this kid, and I'm calling him a kid, he wasn't that much a kid, he was 24, 25. But anyways, he's my little brother from another mother. And he says, I sell these supplements. Do you want to try? I think they can really help you, because he saw me struggling getting out of the car. He saw me sitting. And when I'm sitting back in the day, I'll be, doing these type of faces like every few minutes because I couldn't sit down comfortably, right? And he says, Andy, I think these supplements can really help you. And of course, during that time, I didn't think anything will work. But he says, Andy, there's a money back guarantee. Check it out. So, I was sitting at Starbucks with Minna for over an hour, and Minna's already giving me the eyes. Let's get the hell out of here, or buy the shit, or buy the product. And to make a long story short, I bought the product. I told the kid, look, I'm just going to buy everything. Just sell me everything. Because in my mind, having that negative mindset, having over 20 years of my body hurting and failing me, there's nothing in this world that was going to turn this around. But I wanted to keep this kid happy, give him a sale. But in my mind, I was going to return everything in 30 days, right? That was my thought, right? So I bought all the product, and I got to say, when people say, well, how much money you spend? Well, I don't know, maybe it was $1,600, right around there. It was a lot of money for vitamins, let's put it that way. Right. And I didn't even know what I was buying. Right. I just said, I bought this, I bought a little of everything. The kid was giving me some recommendations. And basically, once I got the product, I was just using the multivitamin and the recommendation that was supposed to help, but with regenerating joints, right? Building back collagen, building back, all my worn out joints for my knees, my back, and stuff like that. And remember when I said earlier, my routine in the morning was to roll out of bed, because I'm not like the normal people where you wake up, you stretch, you swing your feet off the floor, and you just get up, right? So many people can do that. You take that for granted. But for me, my routine was freaking everything hurts. That's first thing in the morning. And then I roll off the bed, and then I push myself out of bed. That was my routine for probably over 10, 15 years. Right. So one day, after taking these supplements that's supposedly good for the joints and the multivitamins, and I was taking a high grade vitamin C too. Things that supposedly I've been taking vitamins for over 20 years. I turned to Minna and I say, baby, something's wrong. And she says, hey, what's wrong? Let me get dressed, right? Because last time I said that, I had a kidney stone. We went straight to the hospital. And she says, no, something is different. Check this out. And in my mind, I'm going to swing my feet off the bed and stand up. And guess what? For the first time in my life, I was able to do that. It was not perfect, get you, but I was able to get off my feet, swing off the bed, put my foot on the floor. It was a little unsteady, and I stood up. And I was thinking, holy shit, I cannot remember the last time I did this. Like this is like one of those moments. Wow, what did I just do? Right? This was taking the supplements for 2 weeks. Right. And I got to tell you, it's like, what the hell are in these supplements? Right. Like that was what was running in my head. I'm calling the kid up and he's giving me all the signs and the stuff. And you know me, I'm a scientific guy. So I said, look, I want to see the data. I want to see the facility and everything. So we ended up going down to check out the facility in Utah. We got the full tour. Why is it different and stuff like that? And for people that want to reach out to me, I'll let you know. I'll let you in on the supplements, but you know, um, I'll tell you a little bit more about it as we go along. But anyways, it blew my mind on the difference between your regular supplements from Costco, the ones your doctor says, oh, just buy the cheapest one available because they're all the same, which is total bullshit, by the way, to what's considered a high grade supplement. And there are probably only a handful of high grade supplements out there. And maybe there's a little bit more now. I sort of stopped my study of supplements because once I know which ones work, there's no point reinventing the wheel, right? Just stick with what works, right? So anyways, that's what started me being curious. Holy cow, if supplements giving your body what it was lacking for 20 years can slowly help my body heal, what the hell else am I missing, right? So at that point, at 43, I said, I'm done with this whole automotive business. And the people that knew me before, I love fast cars. I used to modify cars, and I still love fast cars now. That's why, hence, I own a Tesla. But anyways, I gave up that business and said, look, I'm going to study everything about health and nutrition, right? That's just where it all started. I wanted to heal myself. I wanted to know if that was possible, right? So I gone down that rabbit hole, study about nutrition, no supplements, learned everything there was about there. There's so much information there that's like a 2-3 hour lecture. I wanted to give you something on that, but that started me on the journey. Oh my God, food is not what food thinks, like what we're putting in our mouths is not food, right? There's just so many things that is not food when we think it's food, or that we think is food, and which we think is the same that our grandparents or great grandparents say, which are totally different, right? Which brought me to further down rabbit hole. Each rabbit hole I delve into to look into health and longevity, it just got me into another rabbit hole. And I got to tell you, at first it was sort of scary because I'm saying, oh my gosh, why don't the doctors tell us this? Right. And once again, maybe because doctors only have 25 years, 25 weeks, maybe less of nutritional counseling or nutritional training, right? Maybe that's why they don't know. And to be honest, that's not what they're trained on. They're trained on helping you with your symptoms and giving you a drug for that, right? That's what they're trained on. And of course, putting it back together, which is to me what's more important. Anyways, the more I looked into it, started with supplements, then it looked into the foods, how shitty the foods are. And then now that I know that the foods are really bad, what do we do? How do we get all this crap out of this food out of our body? Because whatever stays in your body, guess what? It causes inflammation, it causes degradation, it causes all these bad things to happen. And then I started looking into detoxes, into parasites, and all the different diets out there. And it's funny because when it comes down to diet, that is where supplementation comes in, right? So where am I going with all this? Because we all started with this talk about longevity, right? And nowadays, like I said, on my Facebook feed, my longevity feed, I'm getting all these supplements, all these treatments on what they claim improves longevity, and stimulate stem cells, because stem cells now is the magic word. Because what are stem cells? Well, the best description I can think of, stem cells is your master cells, like the cells God gave you for your body to repair itself. Basically, they are cells that will turn into whatever cells it needs to be to repair whichever body system you have damaged. So if you have heart problems, stem cells will turn into heart cells and fix your heart. You got brain problems, neurological problems, they'll bring in the brain cells. You got eyesight problems, eye cells, so on and so forth. You got gut problems, turn into gut cells. That's why they call master cells, right? Or stem cells. Anyways, there are a lot of studies now about stem cells and how they can not only help you repair your body, but there are a lot of studies showing that they can actually reverse your age, right? So, back in the day, you're going to get stem cells through stem cell infusions, IV infusions, and stuff like that. Not legal in US. You can still get in Mexico. I think you can get in Europe, right? But freakishly expensive. And to be honest, the amount of money you spend probably isn't going to be worth it for the results, because the results typically is maybe about a 30 to 40% chance it's going to work for you, right? So once again, you're spending 10, 20, $30,000 on these stem cell treatments that may or may not work for you, right? Because at the end of the day, those stem cells aren't your stem cells, right? And we are all bio individuals, so we want stuff that our body creates itself, right? I think that's sort of important. I hope you all agree with me. Whatever we put in our body is important, and what we create inside our body is our own, right? Like what we have in our body is not going to be perfect for someone else's body. That's why when you look at transplants and stuff, it's so important to get that matching, the blood matching, the organ matching, and all that science. And I'm not a specialist in that, so I'm not going to talk about that. But anyway, stem cells is a big thing. So with all these products out there claiming for better longevity, they're going to, a lot of it is around inflammation, right? Because we know that inflammation is the mother of all diseases, right? If you, have acute inflammation, something that you cut yourself, like my car accident. Yeah, it's actually maybe a good thing, right? I was bleeding over my head. I had inflammation. It was causing a blood clotting. That's a good thing, right? But when it's chronic, when it continues to happen over a long period of time, that's a bad thing, right? So that, once again, we talk a little bit about foods, bad foods, toxins, right? And, the stress. There's so much stress now on the internet, on your work performance, on your relationship, on your social media feed, right? What you're talking about, a little bit of stress there, right? That's why each week I said, I'm just going to go with flow. I don't know what the hell I'm going to talk about. I'm just going to talk about what my heart wants to share. And today I wanted to share a little bit about myself, because I'm excited, because I'm going to a Share a Light convention tomorrow. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But anyways, where am I going with all this? Yes, inflammation is so bad for your body. So a lot of these products claim they lower inflammation. In a sense, if lower inflammation, everything should get better. So when it comes to products, right? Because, the honest question is, are these products working, right? And there are so many products out there. Like, honestly, it's sort of scary how many products are being claimed that they can help you get better health. I'm not talking about the ones that help you lose weight, like all those injections into the belly, those ones actually destroy your health. You may look better on the outside, look skinny on the outside, but you're being rotten on the inside, right? So we're not even going to talk about that. I'm not talking about looking skinny to be healthy, because in my mind, if that's what you think healthy is, we need to talk, right? That's all I got to say, right? Being skinny doesn't mean that you're healthy. I have a lot of friends that are very skinny and they got so many chronic health problems that it's not funny. So just because you look at someone, oh wow, they're so fit, they look so skinny, I envy their abs. Well, a lot of those people are suffering chronic conditions that you don't know about, just like me, they're hiding. But anyways, when I'm talking about healthy, living a long time, enjoying life, doing things that people say you cannot do because you're old, right? And I don't know if you saw my latest reel I shared out there, because I'm usually talking about health. And I was like, let's share something a little different, because I've been, I'm a personal trainer too, of course. And most of my clients are about the same age as me or 10 years younger. I have one client, two clients that is, 3 years younger, and one that's 8 years younger. But anyways, we always have the conversation. Well, we're getting old. Expectations get lower. We have to do less workouts, and we're not going to be as strong. We don't have the endurance, and so on and so forth. And I said, like, that's bullshit. That is your negative mind thinking. So you're thinking and stinking. So you're actually bringing your health down, right? So I thought, what, I was just flipping through my photo feeds. You know how Facebook will come up 10 years ago. They show you a picture. Why don't you put a recent picture 10 before and after? And I said, oh, that sort of inspired me. And it threw a picture of me training on TRX. And you're probably not going to believe me, but it was actually 10 years ago that I was introduced to TRX by a dear friend, Michelle, my first personal trainer. And that's how I was introduced to TRX. I loved it immediately because you get to use your own body weight and adjust how much you're lifting, because I wasn't that strong back then. Right. That's my journey, just, starting my journey back to health. And I was looking at that, and we did a video of me doing push-ups and TRX. And if you guys haven't done TRX push-ups, it's can be harder than doing it on the floor, because there's the whole balance situation and everything. I had to keep everything tight. Anyways, I was doing regular TRX push-ups, and I was saying, wow, how can I inspire people? Because here I am, I'm getting all my clients, all my friends saying, well, when we get old, we get weaker. We cannot do what we're able to do before. And I'm looking, well, this is 10 years ago. What can I do 10 years after? Right. So if you haven't checked out the video, check it out. I was doing TRX push-ups with one arm. Right. Probably not too many people can even do that are younger. Okay. Let alone, I'm 55 this year. Okay. So I'm definitely not getting any younger, but I am getting stronger. Right. So when I talk about how do you measure longevity with all these freaking products out there, let me ask you this. I'm just going to shoot off a couple of things that you can measure. And I'm not even going to go very scientific right now. Okay. First of all, if you've been on the product, make sure, it doesn't matter what product you're on, give it a good 90 days to 180 days, right? 3 months to 6 months to test the product. Once again, there's a lot of amazing product out there. Some of them work better than others, but give it 3 to 6 months to test the product. So many people want to see immediate results within 30 days, 10 days, 60 days. You need to realize, if you need products to improve your health probably isn't that good. And where you are now did not happen over 30 to 60, 90, or 6 months. It happened over years. So you damage your body over years. You're not going to get results back in days, 2 weeks, 2 months. You're probably looking, consistently 3 months to 6 months for showing some good results. Now, being said, let's say you're trying these products out there. Like I said, there's so many products out there, and you're trying it for 3 months, 6 months. As you're trying the product, here are some things that you can actually do to see if they're working for you. First of all, is your energy better? And I'm not talking about a psychological effect, right? Because a lot of people say, oh, that's just a placebo effect. You're thinking you got better energy. Well, there are certain things. When you're going for a walk, do you feel winded? When you're going up the stairs, coming down the stairs, do you feel winded? Right? Does it hurt to walk? These are all little signs that maybe whatever you're trying is working for you, right? First thing, energy. Very easy to test, right? If you want to go a little more scientific, do a speed walk and do a measurement of how long it takes you to walk that mile. Once again, that's going a little bit more scientific, something that I like to track. The next thing is sleep. And I'm not talking about the number of hours you sleep. I think that's important too. Some people can't sleep, and taking certain supplements may give you a few more hours of sleep, meaning they knock you out. More importantly is how rested you are after sleep, right? Because some people say, oh, you need 8 to 10 hours to feel rested, right? Or some people say, oh, I feel rested. I only need 3 to 4. Well, when I'm saying being rested, it's first thing in the morning when you get up. Are you feeling alive? Is your brain alive? Does it feel like I'm ready to conquer the world? That means you got enough sleep, right? And depending on what you're doing for supplements or lifestyle changes, that's a great way to monitor your sleep. The next few things, we're going to get a little bit, more scientific. Um, if you have a smartwatch, a smart ring, some type of smart device that measures your heart rate data. Measuring your heart rate data is another great way to see if supplements or protocols are working or not, right? You're measuring your resting heart rate, what your resting heart rate is, what your sleeping heart rate is, like how low does your heart rate go down when you're sleeping, um, how high does your heart rate shoot up when you're exercising, but more importantly, how quickly it comes back down. These are all signs of heart health. And I talk a lot about this over the last few years because of the vax, so many people have heart damage without knowing they have heart damage, because if you look at the heart data before and after the vax, the resting heart rate is higher, the workout heart rate is higher, and the time to come down is much longer. To me, that's heart damage, right? That is proof that something's wrong with your heart. It's not because you're getting older, it's because something is not right. But that's not what today's about. But that's, that just letting you know how heart rate data is so important. The other thing, and this one's sort of scientific, not scientific, depends how you look at it, is how often are you getting sick? All right. So if you are taking supplements or you're eating better, or just say you're exercising, all these things that's supposed to make you healthier. When you're healthier, your immune system should be more robust. If you're healthier, your gut is working, right? You should have a stronger immune system, meaning that you should not get sick very often. And if you do get sick, you should bounce back fairly quickly. So if you change your diet, if you're exercising like crazy already, and you're taking all these supplements, and I don't care how they market the supplements, some supplements saying test on gas, and they're giving all these tests to measure the parameters they want you to measure, and they're saying, well, this is good for longevity if this number is this number, right? If all this is true, you should be healthier, right? You should be getting sick less often, right? So in these last 4 years, of course, we had COVID, the pandemic. If people don't know what that is, right? I know a lot of people are sort of sweeping under the rug like it never happened, but the pandemic happened, and a lot of people got really sick. I'm not gonna dispel that because that is the awful truth, right? But in these last 4 years, me and Minna got COVID twice. And the only way I knew I got COVID, it's not because I got sick, I was hurling and all this stuff, I couldn't get out of bed, crazy, fever, anything like that. I got sick twice because I went to test my antibodies shortly after I got sick, and the antibodies spiked, meaning that, well, my body made antibodies to fight off whatever virus I got. And I knew that's why I got COVID, because it was a COVID antibody test, right? But during the times when I got it, I think I got it. I don't know. Maybe it's just a flu. I don't know what it was. I was tired for a day or two. I had a fever to 101. But like the next day, back to my workouts, back to my training, right? I was a little tired, but I wasn't out, right? So once again, in these 4 years, even with the pandemic, all the stuff that I've been doing has helped me stay healthy, boost my immune system, right? So once again, if the product you're using is claiming for better longevity, it should make you healthier, boost your immune system, less chance of getting sick. So if you've been using certain products over these last 3-4 years, and you're still getting sick, you're still going to the hospital, maybe these products aren't working like they say they are, right? You know what I'm saying? Like there's so many things out there that they can claim, but your body tells you the story. Your body does not lie. If your body is strong, show it. If your body is weak, it will show it. So that's an important one. Are you getting sick? Right. And of course, if you want to go even more scientific, start measuring inflammation markers, start measuring kidney function, liver function numbers, right? Start measuring CRP, like the inflammation of your heart, right? And see if that's inflammation that's going up. Because if that number's up, if your white blood cell count is up, you're constantly having inflammation. And once again, if there's a flu going around, temporarily might be okay. But if it's constantly like that, not a good thing. If your body is in chronic inflammation all the time, not a good thing. You're going to get sick all the time. You're never going to be operating at peak performance. But more importantly, you will get sicker and older as you age, right? So we need to wipe out the inflammation. So for all the people out there that's trying all these products that's supposed to claim lower inflammation, get your inflammation markers tested, not just measuring your different cholesterol levels, this level to this level to see to get into a certain ratio. That helps. Don't get me wrong. That is good ratio. Like that is good health marker, but that is not a marker for inflammation, right? So there are a few products talking about that, and I tried their product for 3 months, and to be honest, it's out in the wash because I did my full blood panel test 3 months before I started that, and the 3 months that I started using the product, no other changes to my diet. I did a test again to measure my cholesterol, uh, you know, cholesterol levels, my omega-3s, omega-6s. It came down a little bit, but not drastically. It's something that I'm sure I could have done with diet alone. So not quite sold on that. I think that ratio is important, but not necessarily a measure of longevity, right? But when it comes to longevity, like I said, I think you want to be improving longevity without stressing your body out, without giving it added chemicals, added stress, right? So a lot of these supplements, some of them are really high grade, don't get me wrong. And like I said, there's some supplements I'm still taking. But the funny thing is, when your body is working at an optimal level, you actually need less supplements, right? So I told you 12 years ago, I started my journey with supplement, and I'm just counting in my head how many supplements I took. There were probably 10 supplements a day that I was taking, like 10 pills a day I was taking, supplements, not medication. Right. And then that was on top of my pain medication initially. And I was religious taking those 10 vitamins every day, probably for the first 3 to 4 years. And, it got me off all my medication. And I was on a lot of medication. It took away a lot of my back pain, a lot of my knee pain, a lot of my neck pain, areas that I fractured and bent. It healed mainly my gut. I had less gut problems. And, I went on a journey for detox and everything. But in the last couple of years, you know, like I said, I've tried every single supplement out there. I tried every different type of protocol out there. And I even use a lot of the biohacking stuff like PEMF therapy, infrared light therapy, uh, ice tubs, hyperbaric therapy, right? If I haven't used it in a wellness center, I actually own the equipment at home. And most of this therapy works amazing, but you need to find time to do it. Each therapy, you need to spend 20, 30 minutes a day. And, unless you're retired and have stinking lots of money and do nothing for 3, 4 hours a day, you can do these therapies. That's assuming you can afford them, right? Anyways, I was doing all these therapies for these last 5 to 7 years. And I got to say, it's got me really freakishly healthy, right? I was still using most of my supplements. I was probably down to 6 supplements a day. But I was using this therapy, the red light, the PEMF, the cold plunges, the occasional hyperbaric chamber, ozone therapy. And I got to say, wow, my body feels fantastic. I really feel like it felt like I was my age again. I didn't feel like a 70-year-old. I felt like a 47, 48-year-old. And I was excited, right? Because all of a sudden, I already reversed the clock 20, 30 years. And 2 years ago, one of my dear friends, one of my best friends now, Sherry McCann, introduced me to a product at the event I was speaking at. And she was telling me, have you heard of stem cells? And of course, I heard of stem cells, right? So, I was thinking, I was humoring her, what's this all about? It's, oh, well, we got this product that can elevate a peptide in your body, naturally, and that already piqued my ears naturally. And I think, well, tell me more. Well, it's like it's non-transdermal. It uses your body's own light energy and heat to create a peptide naturally. And once this peptide gets elevated, one of the great side effects, and I love saying side effects because it has so many other great effects, is it can reactivate dormant stem cells. And there are a lot of studies on this, right? And the peptide I'm talking about is GHKCU. So if you haven't heard of GHKCU, please Google it. Take a look at what is able to do. They have GHKCU IV injections. They have it in your skincare cream. Oh man, I'm sure you can even shower in it. Like they're trying to use this externally everywhere, and because they know that once your body's GHKCU elevates, it can create stem cells. It boosts your collagen, your elastin, so you have firmer skin, younger looking skin. It boosts your immune system, right? It starts building back cartilage. Like there's just so many crazy things that this GHKCU can do. And of course, you're saying, hey, what it is it's LifeWave. And all it is this patch right here. It's a little amazing. If you take a look at this, it's just a little patch right here, right? And she says, all you have to do is put it on your body for 12 hours each day, and it will stimulate your body by reflecting back certain light frequencies to elevate this GHK copper peptide to activate your master cells. And here I am, I'm standing with her, at her booth, and I was skeptical, right? And I was thinking the science makes sense. I was thinking, is that even possible, right? So sure enough, I'm probably her hardest sell ever. She said, here, we'll put one on you and let me know how you feel. It was a 3-day event. So normally, she gives one night and then she'll come back the next day. How are you feeling? And most people say, oh, I feel great. And, and I think, there are one patch wonders now that I've been using the product for 2.5 years. But at the same time, I think a lot of people have that placebo effect, right? So when she says, well, how are you feeling? I didn't feel anything. Like, I'm being honest. First day, I didn't really feel anything. I had a long day. We're on our feet all day long. We're talking. We're networking. Maybe I was too tired to feel anything. She's, oh, Andy, everyone's different. Maybe it'll take longer before you feel something. Let's put on a new one. All right. She said, do you remember taking it off last night? I said, I took it off before I slept. Great. Let's pop on a new one. So second day of convention, I'm wearing this again. And the second day is like, I think I'm feeling a little bit better. I don't feel as tired, but once again, it's that placebo effect coming in, right? Being scientific and knowing I'm already using all these other technologies. I know what it feels like when your body's working properly, right? Like after an infrared session, after a cold plunge, after a PEMF session. Oh my God, your body feels electrically charged and you're ready to take on anything. This, I was saying, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But second day, I was saying, I think I'm feeling a little bit more energy. I wasn't sure. So I go back to her the third day and I was going to say, I'm done. I don't really notice anything. Andy, let's just try one more day, right? And on the third day over the night, because we're left on the fourth morning, I wore it, and fourth morning when I woke up, all the areas that were broken in my body started hurting like a bitch. And that's really the best way I can explain that. It hurts so bad. And you have to remember, all the holistic modalities I've been doing for the last 10 years, all these pains have probably went from a 10 down to 1, like where I don't even notice it. These were all back, like my neck, my knees, my ankles, my back. They were probably at a 5 or 6. And I was thinking, oh, interesting, right? That's what I said, interesting. And for most people, I think people is going to freak out and say, oh my God, what the hell are you doing to my body? It's like, it's hurting now, right? And I was excited to go to see at the booth because I wanted to order the product. And she said, how are you feeling, Andy? And I was saying, not too good. Everything hurts. He said, oh, everything hurts? And I said, yeah. And I said, but I wanted to buy the product. Right? So I probably caught her off guard, but it's interesting when your body starts to heal. Something's And this doesn't happen to everybody, right? Some people are just lucky and the body wasn't that damaged. They start getting that better energy, that better sleep, all the really cool things that we associate with better health, right? But if you had bad health or injuries before, those areas may what we call, I think in the holistic world, they call it retracing. Basically, those areas that were hurt or damaged, they get stimulated again. And I was excited because now I know that my stem cells are stimulating in those areas. Because remember what I told you what stem cells do? They repair what is broken, right? And for me, for the areas that was hurting, those were all those areas that I either broken, fractured, twisted, dislocated over the last 40 years, and they were hurting, which means that my body's being stimulated. These are all the broken areas, and we're going to fix them one by one. And I got to tell you, I bought the product, on the 5th day when I woke up, all this retracing, it was all gone. All this pain was gone. It was almost magical. One day I was hurting at a 5, 6, 7 level. Next day I was back down to 0. I was thinking, holy crap, there's something about this product, right? And, as a biohacker, as a longevity expert, I use the product for a solid 6 months, a year, doing full blood panels, MRI scans to prove they do what they do. And, about showing my blood labs, I got to say they were amazing before and after. And, I cannot say enough about this product. So there are a lot of products out there. And all I can say is, please, please do your own research. First of all, when you're using the product, use it for 3 to 6 months, right? And I think any product, because like I said, I tried many products. They all work to a certain degree, but how well do they work? What's a bang for the buck, right? Because some of these products, you probably have to spend $5, $8, $10, $12 a day, and you need to use these for the rest of your life, right? Or it stops working, right? So that can get pretty expensive at $5 a day, 5 times 30, that's what, $150. If it's $10 a day, that's $300 a month, right? And on the second thing is, for these products, if they do what they do, can they offset some of the things you're taking, right? Like for me, on my journey, I got off all my medication, all my drugs. And once again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not claiming that any product claiming to heal any diseases or solves any of those problems. But, working with your doctor, if you don't need the pain medication anymore, if you don't need this medication to bring down your blood pressure and stuff like that, that's a win. Because remember, all drugs have side effects, right? And the sooner your body can repair itself without the drugs, the better, right? So that's another sign that whatever holistic healing protocols are working, right? So if the protocols you're trying for 3 to 6 months and it's helping easing pain or helping your blood markers look better, your blood pressure look better, maybe they're working. Once again, when you're using the product, how often are you getting sick? I think that is the biggest one people overlook, because a lot of people say, oh, this stuff is amazing. My back doesn't hurt anymore, and I got so much more energy. Yet they're still getting sick all the time, right? So if you're still getting sick all the time, is it really working, or is it a placebo effect? So all I can say is we are going to a LifeWave convention, Share the Light, tomorrow. I'm so excited because LifeWave has changed my life in the last 2.5 years. In the last 2.5 years since I've been using the product, once again, I'm not claiming it heals anything, but it does elevate your GHK-Cu copper peptide. Non-transdermal, meaning when it's put onto your skin, nothing's being absorbed through the skin. All it's doing is reflecting back your infrared light back to your body. We all emit infrared light, right? We don't want to be wasting our light. We want to be using our light that we shine from our body to power back ourselves. And by reflecting certain frequencies, depending on which patch it is, it elevates different peptides. And with the X39, it elevates the GHK-Cu, which does, like I said, so many amazing things, including activating dormant and new master cells, also known as stem cells. Anyways, not saying they're stem cell activating patches, but they elevate a peptide that can activate your stem cells. And in these last 2.5 years, I told you I have all these supplements that I used to take. I have all these protocols I have at home. I have a PMF bed. I have infrared sauna. I have cold plunges. I have vibration. I got just about everything. And I'm working on my hyperbaric chamber. We're going to have that soon too. But anyways, I used to spend half an hour to an hour on each of these modalities. So in my day, I would spend about an hour to hour and a half doing some of these modalities. And since I've been using this product, I have shrunk down to only using one of those. I'll just choose one of them. Maybe it's the cold plunge, maybe it's the PMF, maybe it's infrared, and I cut it down to only 20 minutes. So where I was spending an hour to hour and a half, now I only choose one of those, 20 minutes. So I got back over an hour back of my time to do whatever I want, something to enjoy, maybe a little bit more work, a little bit more chat time here on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. And the other interesting thing is I cut my supplements all down, right? I am still taking vitamin D, my vitamin D3 with K2, and a vitamin C supplement, right? But I'm no longer taking my multivitamin. I no longer taking my omega-3 supplement. Like I said, I experimented one for 3 months, didn't do too much. We're just going to go back doing omega-3 through our diet. And that's about it. So I cut about another 3 or 4 supplements out of my regimen in these last 2.5 years. So not only did I get more time to myself, but I'm getting the same level of health, if not more, using this product for the last 2.5 years. So it's not placebo effect because like I said, I'm a biohacker. I measure everything. My heart rate data is better. My walking heart rate is better. My HRV is better. My resting heart rate's better. My heart rate recovery now is just insane. It drops right back down within 30 seconds, right? And my resting heart rate when I'm sleeping is 42, 45. I'm not an athlete, but from my understanding, that's pretty low. And my blood sugar, that's one I struggle a little bit about, but that's not because of this. It's because of my diet. But everything is looking better. So once again, this is a product that I have tried in the last 2.5 years. This is really one of the foundations of what I help now with all my clients because it helps your body do what it's supposed to do without any added ingredients, right? Because everything else out there, you're adding something externally, internally. This is working from something internally to help you internally, right? So it's using your own body to elevate your health and wellness, right? So that is really my journey. So out there if you're looking for longevity, like I said, see how that's working for you over the last 3-6 months, right? Check your energy, your sleep, but more importantly, like I said, are you still getting sick? In the last 2.5 years, I caught COVID my second time. And in the first time, I had a whole ozone therapy treatment. I had nebulized peroxide and everything to wipe it out, which solved my problem. I was back and running in a day. I didn't do this the second time around. We're just using this daily. And once again, I never got sick. Once again, my immune system is stronger because what GHKCU also does is it elevates your glutathione, and this product elevates it by about 30%. And glutathione is your master antioxidant, boosts your immune system, and a bunch of other amazing things, better clarity, better brain clarity. So maybe it helped boost my immune system. Never been sick for the last 2.5 years, total 4 years. Never been sick. So that's when you know that what you're doing is helping with your longevity. Because if you get sick easier, that means your body is weak. And if you don't get sick, you're not that weak. And of course, my inspiration was that T-Rex video. If you guys haven't checked it out, please check it out. It's just stroking my ego a little bit, challenging myself of what's possible. And at 55, I am now much stronger than I ever was when I was in my 20s or 30s, doing stuff that I never imagined that I can do. And that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning. All markers for my health right now are easily 9 to 15 years younger than my actual age. And I'm working to be, 15 to 20 years younger, right? And these are all scientific tests using your blood markers, right? Certain exercises and functional movement you can do. And if you're interested in any of those tests, please reach out to me. This was a long post. I was on here for an hour by myself. Oh my gosh. Anyways, reach out to me at longevitywithandy.com. Go to our website, chronicallyhealthylife.com. Follow us on our TV show, Chronically Healthy Life, every Friday night at 7 p.m. We also have our group of Chronic Health Collective coaches every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. And we got a monthly magazine. And we're going to have this crazy, awesome membership that I'm going to launch soon and give you more information. But if any of you all want to learn more about a little bit more what I do, what my journey is, go to longevity is a new lword.com. Download my little ebook here. And in this ebook, basically, I documented everything that I did in the last 12 years to get to where I was back then to where I am now. And so excited to see what's going to be beyond this year, because after this convention that we're going to, there's going to be even more groundbreaking research and studies of how we can reboot our bodies to a younger state, living longer, living stronger. Anyways, that's my episode for Fountain of Youth with Andy today. If there's any questions at all, please leave your comments, or like I said, set up a free 30-minute consult with me, longevitywithandy.com. Any questions at all on the LifeWave product, how they work, is it going to help you? Let's set up a call and let's talk, because like I said, any product you want to try, give it a good 3 months to 6 months to try before you say it doesn't work. All right. Reach out to me, and everyone have a fabulous day.